All right, so hi guys. So from our previous video, I explained a little bit about strategy, a little about using the framework. So in this video, what I plan to do is show you exactly how we can implement this framework by creating different strategies for your personal life, an example for a business, and for a startup. So yeah, okay, so let me share my screen real quick. All right, so the first implementation that I want to show you guys is how do you use this framework in your own personal life. So yeah, so one of the goals, one of the most common goals that people have is to be able to lose weight. So yeah, so let's define that. Okay, so we have an objective now. Okay, lose weight. From the lesson, we know that we have to kind of dig down deeper on okay, lose weight. So what does that look like? How do we know if we've lost enough weight? Pag nag-lose ba ako ng 1 pound, okay na ba yun? If I lose 2 pounds, is that okay? So where is the line that separates it from me achieving my goal versus me basically not being able to achieve that goal? So let's try to define it a little bit further by making it quantitative. So putting a number to that objective, putting a target basically. So to do that, so it's basically to lose 20 pounds in 3 months. Okay, so that's a little bit better of an objective. It's quantitative, it's specific, it's time bound. All right, so the next step is to deconstruct. So, all right, so when you're losing weight, what are the main variables in play to actually do that? Well, there's actually only one real variable, and that is the amount of calories or your caloric deficit. So I don't want to bore you guys with the details, but basically, the if sorry, the number of calories you consume in a day is that less than what you need, you will lose weight. Okay, so what are the things that affect your caloric consumption or caloric usage in a day? So first is your diet. So this is your caloric consumption, and next is your exercise, which is your caloric usage basically. So by exercising, you lose calories. By ingesting food, you gain calories, right? So let's focus first on the diet aspect. So in order for me to kind of deconstruct this this specific variable or create initiatives in order to tackle this specific variable, which is my diet, which will be measured by the number of calories that I consume in a day. So number one, the food has to be low in calories, it has to be filling, and it has to be tasty. So what I need to do is then find a list of food that fit all of these criteria. So yeah, as also measured uh, by my caloric consumption, basically. Okay, so let's move on now to the next variable, which is exercise or the amount of calories that I burn in a day. So in order for me to burn the most amount of calories over an extended period of time, I have to do I have to do a workout or exercise that is fun for me to do so that I don't lose motivation. That burns a lot of calories. So that's very, very efficient. So that I am getting the most bang for my buck for the effort that I put into exercising. So okay, with this, I'll have to come up with a list that satisfies these two conditions. So once I have my list of which foods that will provide me with the least amount of calories, but are also good and tasty, I'll have a diet plan. And now once I have my list of my workouts that are fun and burn a lot of calories, I'll have my workout plan. So as you can see, you're trying to reach this objective on two fronts. So so this part is your deconstruct. You're deconstructing how exactly you're going to tackle it, and then you're prioritizing which foods, which variables are most important. Next is when you're planning. So planning is all about coming up with okay. So that's cool. I have all these different objectives. I have all these different lists. So how do I actually implement that? So that's planning. You're planning on how you can implement that. So you need a schedule basically. So on a day-to-day basis, what am I gonna eat? What am I gonna do? Am I gonna work 3 times a week? Am I gonna work 2 times a week? What am I gonna eat for breakfast? What am I gonna eat for lunch and dinner? So yeah. So once you have this plan in place, so once you have the system in place, it's all about implementing. It's all about tracking and actually doing it. So week one, all right, this is my meal plan and this is my workout. Let's see, was I able to actually move my metric, my main objective in the right direction? Was I able to lose weight? So if yes, then keep going. If not, maybe try to reassess. Maybe look at, okay, maybe I'm not exactly eating the right foods. Maybe my workouts aren't as strenuous, aren't as intense. And then yeah, so that's for our personal life example of applying strategy. Let's go to the next one. So a little bit more business related. So for example, your boss assigns you the task of, sorry, blah, blah, all right. The objective here is increasing amount of time employees stay in the company, basically tenure. So the way you measure this is basically the number of years that they stay. Yeah. So one of the things that uh, can greatly impact the number of years that they stay in a company is their satisfaction with their overall job. So yeah. So actually, I think this part should be in the deconstruct part. So apologies for that. So deconstructing even further, what affects job satisfaction? So I have identified three main drivers or main variables. So first is workload. If if employees are overworked, the tendency is they won't be satisfied. Next is job performance. If they feel like they're performing well in their specific position, they will be more satisfied with that job. And lastly, environment. If they do not enjoy the environment, they don't enjoy the office, the co-workers, their bosses, their supervisors, they're more likely to quit and more likely to become unsatisfied. So workload. So how do we measure workload? So we can use that. You can measure it through workload satisfaction survey. So what this means is you're basically just gonna ask people, okay, do you feel like you're overworked, you're underworked? Yeah. So basically just asking through a survey. So what are the different variables that affect your workload? Basically, it's the amount of tasks and the amount of time. So what you can do here is actually ask each employee to list down the tasks that they are doing, and then maybe ask their supervisor and ask them how much time do they think they need in order to accomplish this. So you'll kind of see if people are overworked based on whether or not they have ample time to actually complete the tasks assigned to them. So yeah, so next is job performance. So job performance, basically you can measure this through the supervisor's feedback on your job, whether the supervisor believes or thinks that you're actually performing well or underperforming. So to actually affect this, to actually kind of influence job performance, there are two main variables that I've identified. So training. So the more you train your employees, the better they can perform. And next is hiring. You hire employees which are already skilled in that specific uh, job or skill that you need, they will most likely perform a lot better. All right, now for the environment. So we can also measure this through an employee environment satisfaction survey, which means you're just simply asking your employees whether or not they enjoy the environment that they have. So this environment can be broken down mainly into three. So office space, workmates, and out of office activities. So yeah, so the next step really here is planning on what initiatives can I actually do in order to impact these different variables, these key drivers. The first one is ensure that employees have enough time to complete their tasks. So but once you kind of have an idea whether or not people are overworked or underworked, you can kind of control. Okay, parang you can make a tracker of how overworked and underworked people are, and then kind of flag people if overworked na sila. Not really flag, or tell them tell their supervisor na you gotta give this guy less tasks or give him more time to accomplish his job. For training, so it's pretty straightforward. You have to conduct more trainings to upskill your employees. Hiring, improve hiring process by maybe creating a hiring criteria. So maybe they need a certain amount of experience, certain skill sets before they can actually be hired. Now for the environment, so office space, initiative you can do is maybe hire an interior decorator, make the space a little bit more work friendly. For the workmates, use personality tests to group people together. So that could be a possible initiative that can increase employee satisfaction on the environment. Next is out of office activities. So conduct out of office activities, maybe go to the beach, have a foosball table or whatever. This way, it could possibly, potentially affect your metric, which is the satisfaction they have with regards to the environment, which will then affect your greater objectives of overall employee satisfaction, and then ultimately the amount of years that they stay in the company. So once you have your list of initiatives, what you need to do is really just test them out whether or not they work. And then if they do work, keep going. And if they don't, kind of reassess. So remember that to know whether or not an initiative is working is whether or not it moves the metric in the direction that you wanted, the amount that you wanted to move. So for example, training. So if you conduct trainings, your goal here is for the supervisors of those who attended trainings to kind of increase. So this means that their supervisors will rate them a little bit higher than normal. So what you can do is, so maybe supervisor feedback form ka maybe, and then after maybe a month of training, look at their performance maybe 2-3 months after, and see if there is a significant difference in in the feedback of their supervisors versus those that were not trained. So here you're kind of doing a little bit of scientific method experimentation. So yeah, so these are two examples of how this strategic framework is actually applied. All right, so let's move on to applying this in something that's a little bit more relevant, which is your project. Yes. All right. So let's see. So basically, the objective when launching any business just basically make it successful. So I wrote that the main metric here is initial revenue. So I know that technically profit would be your ideal metric, but I kind of don't want to make things a little bit more complicated than they have to. So let's just stick with the revenue first. The revenue. So what affects a company's revenue? First is the market. How big is the market? Is the market, I mean, if you're in a market that generates 1 billion pesos per month, you're likely to get more of that rather than if you're in an industry that generates only like 1 million per year or something. So next is your customers. So if your customers are gonna buy it, then you will have more revenue. If more customers buy, more revenue for you. Competition. If you have a lot of competition, a lot of different businesses offering the same service, then your revenues you will be fighting over that same market share, potentially depleting your potential revenues. Next is yourself. So how well are you able to actually provide value to your customers? This will ultimately affect the amount of revenue that you can generate. So all right, so let's go first to market. So market size. Is the market big enough? Can you actually make revenue, significant amount of revenue here? Another something additional to the market size is market trends. What's going on in the market? Next is for the customers. So what do your customers value? If you know what they value, you can serve them better, and if you are able to serve them better, more customers will buy. So yeah. Next is competition. So what are your competitors doing? If you kind of are able to position yourself in a way that avoids competition, this way you can actually uh, capture a bigger part of that market share. Next is yourself. So what are you good at? What are you good at doing that is you're able to do something that's better than 90% of the population? Okay. So basically this line here are your potential initiatives. So market size estimation, doing interviews, competitor, looking at the product reviews or competitor reviews to find out what people value, what customers value, implementing surveys, looking at your competitors' strengths and weaknesses, and looking at your own strengths and weaknesses, you'll be able to come up with a strategy to actually capture more of the market. And then you'll have your business objectives, which will be this. So this is all. This is basically the framework that that you guys can use when coming up a strategy, coming up with a strategy for your new business venture or new product idea. So let's in the next video. So I think this video is getting a little bit too long. I'll actually show you guys how this can be implemented with an example product. So yeah, see you guys in the next video.